government that has no sort of responsiveness to the people. But then this raises questions also about resistance, right? So if we develop some norms that any people are responsible in some way, even if not a criminal way, but responsible in a moral way for what happens around them, then we might do a better job developing some norms of resistance and change rather than tolerance and condoning violence that happens around a person.
This is kind of a little bit off topic of what we were talking about, but is there a way also to hold corporations accountable when they go into like other countries? Like I think of Shell in South America.
Yeah.
Information on that?
Yeah, so the question is about holding corporations accountable when they're in other countries. So the civil law is a great way to do it. So the Alien Tort Statute has been, up until now, an avenue to hold corporations responsible for human rights abuses. That might be an avenue that's foreclosed pretty soon because there's a lot of litigation going through U.S. courts about whether corporations can actually violate international law. Under the criminal law, the individuals can be held responsible, but the corporations can't at this point. So this is another sort of fascinating innovation of Nuremberg, that there were trials against the industrialists, so people who, because of their role in corporations, were responsible for some crimes. But the Nuremberg fantastic innovation, I think, was identifying criminal organizations. So that, had that taken hold and it didn't, that might have been an opportunity to recognize corporations as criminal, but it hasn't happened.
Yeah. What about religious organizations like Catholic churches systematic cover-up of sexual abuse?
So there has actually just been, it's not a formal complaint, but there's a petition that's been submitted to the International Criminal Court about exactly this. So there's no way to hold organizations like that or any sort of non-state organizations responsible. There's no way under international criminal law to hold states responsible. International criminal law is all about individuals.
But also, I mean, sexual abuse is not one of the free crimes. It's something that you would like.
It could come in under war crimes if it's taking place in the context of a conflict, but that particular example wouldn't actually work there. But sexual abuse could be.
By what right did the United States government claim with the tort claim law that it had jurisdiction in other countries for crimes in other countries?
So when the law was passed, it was actually done out of a sense of comedy and respect toward other nations. So it was seen to be a way of allowing diplomats who were harmed when they were in the United States to bring a lawsuit. So there was nothing sort of American exceptionalist about this law when it was drafted, right? It was done as a way of giving something to foreigners and making them have more power in U.S. courts than they already did. That's obviously changed, and there's been a lot of hostility towards the United States based on this law. And that's why the State Department pretty frequently files interventions in these cases and says the court really should not hear this complaint because this is causing serious problems for the foreign relations of the United States.
One last question.
In the international community, it seems to me, and now I'm going to let my ideology show, it seems to me that who are committing these crimes, what is committing these crimes, are corporations, are organizations, are states. Yes, there's a banality of evil in these organizations that cause this to happen. But this expectation of holding the individual responsible, when in reality the evil is being committed institutionally.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a dissonance there. Like,
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. So the question is that there's a dissonance between holding individuals accountable and the fact that crimes are committed by institutions. So I absolutely agree with that. And I do think that properly represents the reality of how these crimes are committed. So the lone wolf genocide, right? It's possible in theory, but it's not how it happens. These are states, these are organizations, these are state-like organizations, or at least corporation-like organizations. But the idea there is that we shouldn't perpetuate these sort of community hatreds that led to the conflicts in the first place. I don't agree with that. I think actually recognizing the institutional roles in these conflicts is a much more productive way to move towards reconciliation. And that's why I think having an opportunity through this Genocide Convention for the International Court of Justice to say this state is responsible for the commission of genocide is actually very productive rather than destructive.
So look, we thank you. We really
Thank
appreciate
you.
you coming.